Okay, so I think we should probably say something. Yeah, Harry Potter. JK has Rowlinged herself again. I don't know when we recorded the audio for Chamber of Secrets. I think it was during the heat wave. I remember that because we complained about the heat a lot.
It was also before J.K. Rowling announced that she was releasing a transphobic novel.
Yeah.
So I think we should just address it. This is in no way okay. We in no way support.
Yeah, we are not okay
that.
with this. Don't give money to J.K.
No,
Rowling.
and I'm not in a diplomatic mood either, so I'm not afraid of holding back on this.
Yeah.
Fuck J.K. Rowling. And
yeah.
If it's just such a shame that she's associated with these movies because although she wasn't that directly involved in them, she did write the books they were based on, and a lot of the people who have worked on these movies have come out and said that bullying, transphobia, none of this is okay.
Yeah.
And they're talented people in their own right, so I think it's right that we cover these movies just to expose the good people involved in this and the good this franchise has done for a lot of people.
The fact that our niche is media from the 90s and 2000s. Harry Potter was the big movie franchise of the early 2000s. Possibly until...
It'd be like not covering the prequels.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and we do fully intend to cover both of those. But, yeah. The whole association with J.K. Rowling of this leaves a foul taste in my mouth. So if you are going to watch these movies and you don't own them already, I would recommend that you buy them through the secondary market, if at all. Like, I don't know.
Or watch the copies you already own, if you own.
And statistically, you probably do.
Yeah.
So...
we won't judge you if you pirate either. It's up to you if you resort to that, but if you're really desperate to watch them.
That's between you and your god. But I think
yes,
if on the rare occasion...
Glenn Shadix.
Yeah.
Ars Glenn Shadix approves, I'm sure.
J.K. Rowling's male pen name came from a conversion therapist, I think, so Glenn Shadix would definitely not want us to give him money.
Oh, definitely not, as one of the first out LGBT actors out there.
Yeah.
In America. Definitely not, but we're probably not the people most qualified to discuss these matters.
No.
There's a lot of others who are, but we just wanted to say we're not okay with her and her current choice of language towards people.
Yeah.
Or anything she's doing.
And apropos of nothing, I'm just going to throw in one of my favourite quotes from another movie we may cover one day, Pirates of the Caribbean. Perhaps on the rare occasion that pursuing the right course of action demands an act of piracy, piracy itself can be the right course. Yeah, and that's just a quote I like. It has no relevance to anything we're talking about.
Nothing ever does. Anyway, enjoy the rest of this review. We'll try to anyway.
Yeah, we certainly will. Right. Hello and welcome to Film du Siècle, the film and media channel focused on all things 90s and 2000s. This week, Seb and Olly will be discussing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Hello, and welcome back to Film du Siècle, the show where me and Olly, I'm Seb, by the way.
And I'm Olly.
Yeah, he is, indeed, I can vouch for him. Talk about film from 1990 to 2010. And of course, coming within that time frame is the Harry Potter film series. If you haven't seen our discussion on Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, click on this link, you can watch it there. Please do that before this, because obviously this is a sequel to that movie.
Link in the down there part.
Indeed. Chamber of Secrets. What are your memories of this movie, Olly?
I remember going to see it in theatres. I remember liking it. It was the final Richard Harris Harry Potter film.
Yes, and it shows. It shows.
What do you mean?
Well, it's the first two feel like they're in their own world, the two Chris Columbus ones.
Yeah.
They feel tonally different, they look different, they're just... Do you know what I mean? They seem...
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Like, it's not just because of Richard Harris, that's incidental, and there's nothing they could have done about that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying those first two movies feel like early Harry Potter, and the ones after that all feel consistent with each other, but not necessarily the first two.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed changes after this is they stop wearing the wizard clothes.
Yeah, and they start dressing more like teenagers.
Yeah. I mean, which is fine, but
I can see
also-
why they made that decision, but it just doesn't really feel so
yeah.
fantastical, if that makes sense.
Although Prisoner of Azkaban is my favourite one, so
Yeah, I like that one
make
as
of
well.
that what you will.
Yeah, well, I think they tried to make the movies after this a lot more gritty and realistic, and I know I'm saying that when you've got a movie where they dump, like, a fetus Voldemort into a bucket and then turn him into a grown-up Voldemort. None of these movies are ever going to be realistic, but do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Like, they go for a different tone after this, I think what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and it makes sense why they do that, because it does fit in more with the more serious tone of the later books and how the books become longer and more elaborated, how they become teenagers themselves and grow up and all of that.
Yeah, what is interesting about that is you could equate the change with how they come to see the world as they grow, and how generally teenagers would come to see the world as they grow and change.
And that itself is pure genius, and it does work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It just feels like something was lost along the way. But maybe that's just a commentary on growing up, because isn't something lost along the way when we grow up?
Yeah. Although,
This
back
went
to
very deep.
Chamber of Secrets, my memories of this film, I remember, as with Philosopher's Stone, a good portion of this book was read to me in school by my teacher at the time. And I don't remember if I read ahead for the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I just remembered that I didn't.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of this book was read to me rather than me reading it. And the film, I remember at the time I really liked the first Harry Potter movie. I mean, it's not that I don't like it now, but, you know, I was a kid and excited for the second one. And, well, since I already knew what was going to happen, I was curious how scenes were going to look.
Mm.
I haven't watched it a great many times after that. Like, maybe two important things to the overall story happen in this one.
Yeah, I think it's one that's on the TV the most, but is watched the least, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie, because I like this one, and I don't know why you wouldn't if you like all the others, if that makes sense.
I think it has a reputation of being the skippable one.
Yeah. Which is ironic, considering it was the first time we really see the Horcruxes and stuff. Obviously, we don't know what all that is until a lot later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it filler by any means. Sorry, what was that, Ollie?
There's a scene in this film where Malfoy conjures a snake from nothing. That's never done again.
No.
And hasn't been done before to my knowledge. So that creates an interesting question. So creating life from magic is not only possible, it's something that your average 12-year-old can do.
Yeah, it's not difficult. I mean, where do you draw the line?
It's possible that Malfoy is a particularly gifted wizard.
We're never really given that impression, are we?
No. I mean...
And that's not a diss on Malfoy, that's just... They don't really make that much
We
of him.
don't see enough of his magical prowess to make that assessment one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Malfoy is more of a thing in the movies than in the books, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because Jason Isaacs, if they get to play Malfoy, is fantastic in the role.
Jason Isaaks?
Jason Isaacs. Oh no, that's who plays Lucius Malfoy. I can't believe I got them mixed up.
Tom Felton, I think you mean.
I forgot all about, Tom Felton, of course. You know, my father will hear about this and all that. I can't believe I got the two mixed up. I'm an idiot. And John Cleese, who played Harry Potter. Actually, is this the last time we see John Cleese in these movies?
I think so.
Yeah, because Nearly Headless Nick, was in all the books, but I think they stopped featuring him in the movies unless he's in the background. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit...
He was never an important character. He was more...
He was good set dressing, though.
He was a good gimmick and, sort of like, oh, isn't that gross? It's fun for kids.
Yeah.
Decapitations are fun for kids.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So, yeah. this 12-year-old child can create life, or did he create life? So,
Yeah. Did he teleport
create
the
the snake from nothing, or did it come from somewhere? So, did he just summon it?
Imagine that, like a poor snake, like chilling on a log, like, yeah, I'm gonna have a nice day, you're gonna catch me some mice. And, what the fuck, Malfoy?
I mean, no wonder it was pissed off.
Yeah, it's like, you took me away from my home!
Yeah. And then Snape destroys it, like he disintegrates it.
I mean, he could have detained the snake.
I think that lends credence to Malfoy having created the snake. Because as it's a magical creation, it can be unmade like that. Because I don't think if it was a summoning, they would just kill it like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because they wouldn't, like, kill wildlife, would they?
No, I suppose not. But...
And if they already created it, I suppose it's in their doing to destroy it again.
Yeah. Although,
It's a sad sentence.
if it was a summoning, he may have just banished it back to where it came from.
Well, no, there were flames. It was a burning snake. It was flamed up.
Yeah.
It was dead snake flambe.
Yeah, that's true. Perhaps I forgot that visual because we haven't watched it yet. But I want to know if that spell was creation or a summoning.
Yeah, because, I mean, you could create sentient life. You could create an ape. You could create a person, potentially. That's a frightening thought.
It, for all intents and purposes, was a snake because Harry was able to commune with it.
Well, yeah, and I like how the snake was born with the power of speech of the snake language. It was a snake that was given the knowledge when it was created.
Would that mean it was summoned? Like, what is the actual mechanics of this spell?
But think about it, in a lot of movies where life is created out of nowhere, like Weird Science, where they create the girl from the magazines, she knows the English language when she's created, and she is a... You know, they don't have to teach her that. She knows stuff when she's created.
Yeah.
Which is bloody weird when you think about it, but...
Well, anyway, I've prattled on about existential stuff with snakes for a while.
Yeah, we're probably going to do that a lot more with this one, because there's a lot of thought-provoking things. It's not intentionally thought-provoking. Oh no, I wouldn't give J.K. Rowling that much credit. in fact, you could say this is commentary on the way people view snakes, because of the Bible, snakes have a bit of a bad reputation. Most of them aren't poisonous. Most of them won't hurt you. Most of them are indifferent to people. You know, they won't hurt you unless you probably hurt them first. You know, they're peaceful like most reptiles. They'll probably just sit on your lap.
I am terrified of snakes, but I am aware that most of them won't bother you if you don't bother them.
But that's just down to natural reflex, because in nature... natural instinct, the animals that will want to stay away from the snakes are most likely to survive as opposed to the animals that, you know, go, oh, look, a snake, I'm gonna put my head in its mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this talk about the magic wizarding world, we've talked about the theory of evolution and the existential dread of creating snakes. Kenneth Branagh's in this movie, by the way.
Sorry, I had a bit of a shudder then.
Oh, that'll do it. Kenneth Branagh is in this movie. Or Branagh, yeah. I don't know how they pronounce it these days.
I've never been sure.
No, I always say Branagh. You know, Kenneth Branagh from Dunkirk plays Gilderoy Lockhart, who is the greatest...
I always heard Branagh.
Branagh, whatever, I don't care. Sorry, Kenneth. We'll just call him Ken, shall we?
I'll tell him you said that, and I think he'll be very hurt.
Aw, good old Ken. Yeah, he plays the Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher we get this year, who has a great shit-eating grin. I like this guy. Do you know who I can imagine playing him, actually?
Other than Ken Branagh?
Yeah.
Who?
Mike Myers.
Yeah, I can see that.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely do.
They stick to British actors for these movies, which makes sense, because they want to encapsulate the whole Britishness of it all. Yeah. But if they were to do an American remake of Harry Potter for whatever reason, and let's face it, it could happen one day, then, yeah, please get Mike Myers in to play Gilderoy Lockhart.
Huh.
He was just such a lovable arsehole, and I couldn't stop laughing as a kid at the bit where he loses his memory. It was just a genuinely funny scene, like, do you live here?
Do you live here? And then he knocks him out with a rock.
The thing is, you can take advantage of him. You can tell him all sorts of things. In the books, did they take him to a mental hospital?
Yeah, they did.
Why? Why?
Because he's lost his memory.
He's not nuts, though. I mean, you could set him loose and he could create his own identity from there.
I think they were trying to heal his memory. I don't know if that works. I don't remember.
So they weren't doing it... They weren't doing it out of malice.
No, I don't think so. Well, I think the Wizarding World just has, like, one establishment that's supposed to sort of deal with everything in a certain field. Like, St. Mungo's
What was it?
is
St.
just
Mungo's?
any kind of magical hospitalisation.
Yeah, it feels like it's very heavy-handed, because at one minute it's just a normal hospital that they go to, and the next it's talked about as if it were Arkham Asylum.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the wing you go to, I guess.
Well, yeah, but can you imagine in real life if there were hospitals that were for the criminally insane? Like you'd have, a guy going in for a kidney transplant right next to Hannibal Lecter.
Unmedicated schizophrenic.
Yeah, next to Hannibal Lecter. I mean, that's just a nightmare waiting to happen there.
It's sort of like how they only have one prison.
Yeah, you'd think they'd need more of these things in a big universe.
Yeah.
For a franchise that's so good at world building, they don't do much world building. It's like 3 schools. There's one for Hungary, there's one for France. Oh no, there's 4. There's one for America and there's one for Britain. Like, where do the African wizards go? Where do the Australian wizards go? Where do the Japanese wizards go?
I'm sure we'll find out eventually.
Yeah, there'll probably be a Japanese wizard school with a culturally insensitive name out there that has been put on the online wiki of Harry Potter.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, shall we get on with this film then?
Yes. I don't remember seeing this in the cinema, you know. I know I did, but I don't remember it clearly like I do the first.
No, I have a similar recollection.
Yeah, this movie was a hit, a fine hit, but I don't think it had anywhere near the same reaction that the first one did. I don't remember struggling to get tickets to see this, and I don't remember the cinema being crammed.
No, nor do I. Shall we get to it then?
Yeah, let's get to it. Okay.
Right, we'll see you after the credits roll, guys.
Yes. Okay, yeah, we watched Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So, question number 1, Ollie, did you like the movie?
I did, yeah. Small point that's worth mentioning. We actually watched the extended version, which I was not aware existed until today.
Neither did I, because we were about half an hour into it, and I said, your version's longer than mine, we're out of sync. And they're like, yeah, extended version apparently. I was like, well, there's an extended version, let's watch that instead.
Yeah, how long has there been one? Because I feel like I should have heard.
Also, our campaign was successful, Ollie. Last month, we said, release the Columbus cut. And then today we find out there is a Columbus cut.
Almost.
And we were so successful in our social media campaign, Ollie, that the Columbus cut was released years before we even knew about it. Can't beat that, can you? I mean, it took them months for the whole Schneider cut thing.
Our campaign was so powerful it pierced time.
Yeah, it took them ages to do the Snyder cut, so
they always had the Columbus cut and we just didn't know about it.
Yeah, that's more likely, Ollie, isn't it?
Yeah.
I also enjoyed this movie, Ollie. There's just so many things to like about it.
I can definitely see why a lot of the scenes in the extended version were cut, like the one in Nocturne Alley with Lucius and Draco. That did not need to be in there, but I think the rest of it is good for filling out the world.
All of them are very superfluous to the plot, but
if I had to choose one to definitely keep in, it would be that one of Harry listening in to those people who were talking about him behind his back.
I liked that because Harry, Ron and Hermione seemed to be the only 3 kids in the whole school who were coming up with theories about what was going on and trying to figure it out and following the clues. So I liked that we saw 2 other kids that were also doing that.
Yeah.
You know, it made it seem like they weren't the only 3 smart kids in the school. Also, it was just nice world building and to show that there are other kids here and they all have thoughts, because you've got that whole Spider-Man thing where you feel like the city's very populated, and you don't really get that with Harry Potter so much, with the children in the school.
Yeah, that's true.
This movie came closest to achieving that feeling, I think, of, there being all these characters living their lives in this world. I think the one I would keep, Ollie, is when Hermione comes back after she's been petrified, and she gives Harry a hug, and then Ron goes all sheepish and shy, like, I'll give you a handshake. I thought that was a very charming and sweet scene.
That was in the original, though, wasn't it?
Was it really?
I think so.
I don't remember that. I just remember there being a hug and then clapping. And like you said, I think we both were under the impression that they were applauding the clap rather than the fact that
they were applauding the
Hagrid
hug.
was back. Yeah, they were applauding the hug. What did I say?
You said applauding the clap.
It's too bloody hot today, Ollie.
I know, I'm sweating.
This
buckets.
is ridiculous. Oh.
Right. Well, let's try and, let's not try and keep this short, but let's not dilly-dally.
I thought you were going to say let's not try and put in any effort to this one.
No.
Yeah, I'm down for that. You can just hear us babbling on for 40 minutes.
I thought, but that's what we normally do.
Oh, bloody hell, they figured it out. Okay. Question 2. How well did the film achieve its goals? What were they?
Very well, I think. It was a very skillful and faithful adaptation of the book as I remember it, although it has been well over a decade since I read it, so,
It's quite a hard life being a sequel, isn't it?
It is. Although, like Lord of the Rings, which was being released around the same time, you do get the feeling that these are parts of the same story.
Yeah.
Although it is a lot more segmented with Harry Potter. Harry Potter would feel most at home as a comic book or a manga.
Yes, and I think we talked about this because during the whole fencing tournament that they have, that Lockhart for some reason decides it wise to organise to teach the children how to defend themselves. I said, well, they should have done a whole shonen tournament arc, and you pointed out that they did in the fourth one.
Yeah, the Triwizard Tournament was the tournament arc of Harry Potter.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen like a tournament of power where all the children have to fight each other.
Yeah, but how would they justify that in the context? Well, how wouldn't they? Because the Harry Potter world is screwy.
Well, anime are very good at contriving these things.
The Harry Potter world is screwy because the head of state came to apprehend a suspected attempted murderer.
With only a teacher to back him up.
Yeah.
He had no security, even though he could have easily procured security. And in the fifth one, again, he is at a juvenile detention court to judge whether this child should be expelled or not, and he is the judge. He is Judge Fudge. Why is he Judge Fudge? He's the head of state.
I'm sorry.
But when serious shit is going down, he has no authority. He seems to do all the menial jobs.
Well, he's far too busy being delicious. Judge Fudge.
Yeah, well, thing is, he's far too busy flogging 9-year-old boys for playing pranks on their teachers to reform tax laws.
Yeah. What?
You've got serious matters of the heads of state to do here.
What the hell kind of, anarcho-fascist state is it living?
That's what we called it, because it's the most authoritarian thing at times, but at other times they turn a blind eye to everything. I mean, it's like, okay, can we talk about welfare reform? No, sorry, I've got something more important to deal with. Jaywalking. What is going on in this world? It's so screwy. Fudge is such a weird character.
Weird legal precedents aside.
Yeah, I mean, they try and make, Fudge to be some sort of allegory of Neville Chamberlain for some reason, because he's all in denial about, again, completely misunderstanding the historical point of appeasement. It's not that they thought that Hitler was a nice guy, it's that they realised that they had to stop him, but they had to buy time to build up enough military strength to do it.
Yeah.
Two different things entirely, and I'm not defending appeasement, by the way, I'm just saying that people misunderstand the historical thing here.
Yeah.
Enough of Seb's history lesson. We'll talk about Harry Potter now. What was the question of this one, Ollie? It was, How well did the film achieve its goals, and what were
Yeah.
they? Yeah, it's a very awkward position of being a sequel. And it's well known in the film industry that sequels are never quite as successful at the box office as the original. Because you have this sort of diminishing returns, don't you?
Yeah. And also...
Because why would you see the second movie if you haven't seen the first, for example?
It's an adaptation of a popular book. It's got that going for it with the box office. I don't understand why people say... Well, I won't say I don't understand. I no longer agree that this is the one out of all of them that you skip.
Yeah, I don't know why people think that.
Well, I know why people think that, because I used to think that. Not a lot that ends up being important later happens in this one.
You could say the same about the first one, to be honest.
Well, yeah, but that's the introduction to the world.
Because it's not really until Goblet of Fire that shit really gets dark and we've got our main antagonist in place for the whole series.
Yeah. This is the one where the status quo is basically restored at the end and nothing has changed. So I think that's why people think you can probably skip this one if you want to. But I wouldn't skip this one.
No, it's important character building. It's important to help you understand Voldemort better because, you can't really say the whole thing with the Horcruxes isn't important. Because let's face it, it is. Whether they were meant to be Horcruxes at the time, we may never know. Because it comes from the Queen of Retcons, but who cares about that anyway?
Yeah.
But in terms of financial success, the original cost 125 million and made 978 million. This, being a sequel, made 879 million. So, nearly as well as the first one, which is quite good considering that sequels rarely do as well as the original movie on the basis that a lot of people won't invest in a franchise that they haven't already started watching.
So that is... Sorry, brain. That's bodes quite well.
Is that your excuse for daily situations, Ollie?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, going into the courtroom. Sorry, brain.
It's the heat, dude.
Yeah. Oh my god, people are going to be watching this in the winter going, why do we keep going on about the temperature? That's so annoying. The budget of this is 4/5 of the budget of the original. So, and you can sort of tell it's got a slightly lower budget.
Yeah, that CGI has not aged well.
Particularly if you watch it HD.
Yeah, this film was not shot in HD, and it shows.
The worst effect is the spiders. Everything else is passable, but the little spiders look so fake.
I don't know, the car was a bit BBC TV pilot.
Yeah, but it was actually, now you mention it. It reminds me a lot of, 2005 era Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Because that was made on a low budget. A lot of it looks very corny, like the shape-shifting bins and stuff like that. Yeah. That was so silly. I remember the funny imagery of Mickey being swallowed by the bin and the bin burping.
Yeah. Well,
this bin that has no gastro system burped.
I feel like we should mention that the acting is a bit awkward in places, but not
really
dwell on that, because they are children, and it's not really, let's not rag on them for that. They did very well, given the circumstances that they were in. Daniel Radcliffe himself has said that he doesn't like watching, well, I believe he said that he doesn't like watching the early Harry Potter films because, for this exact reason, the mistakes that most people get to make in drama class, he had to make in a film.
Well, yeah, because they basically plucked him out as an unknown and got him to work. Which is what you do with a franchise like this.
I'm relatively sure I remember reading an interview where he said that in so many words.
Yeah, well, he was basically plucked out before production, because I remember there being all over the news. They've picked the new Harry. At this point, the only Harry. They've picked the person who's going to play Harry, they picked the person who's going to play Ron, and they picked the person who's going to play Hermione, and you saw them as little kids, obviously.
Yeah.
So they did basically pick them without any real acting on their portfolio, which is what you do with a small franchise. You pick an unknown so that it's not someone who you associate with something else and you watch them grow into the role. But on the whole, I don't think you should complain about the acting too much, because there's some fantastic acting in this, even from the child actors.
Yeah. I've got to say, especially Tom Felton.
Yeah, Tom Felton and Daniel Radcliffe really shine in this movie.
Tom Felton can sell the shit out of spoiled, entitled little brat.
We all knew kids like him, didn't we?
Oh,
I love how he's such a dick in this one. It's like the first time, not counting the extended edition, because there's an odd deleted scene in Nocturne Alley where he goes into the Burke shop with his dad that never really has any consequences, I suppose.
I think it was in the book, and that's why it's in the film.
Just because it was in the book.
And I guess it would add to Harry's suspicion of Lucius having seen.
Yeah, and I
there.
mentioned that about halfway through the movie. Actually, that scene being in there does help a little bit.
Yeah.
But I can see why they cut it for time. It broke up the pacing a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Because it goes straight, you spend 10 minutes in Nocturne Alley for no real reason. It's just meant to be the creepy place he ends up at in accident to establish that not everyone in the Wizarding world is pure and nice.
Which we already knew because Voldemort exists.
But it's a bigger theme in this one, isn't it? Because in the first one, the big bad was Voldemort, whereas in this one, the big bad is also younger Voldemort, but also racist people, basically.
Yeah.
Because you've got Lucius sort of being the other main antagonist, and you've got a few people around him who are like, oh, yeah, pure bloods and all that. But yeah, I love how when we first see him in the canon of the original cinematic release, Tom Felton that is, he is for no reason tearing a page out of a book on the shelf in this bookstore.
Yeah, I have a theory that that's just to illustrate that he's a bit of an ass. Like, just in case this is the first one you see, and just in case there's any doubt that this is, like, a petty antagonist, have him tear the page out of a book and pocket it.
He's damaging someone else's property for no reason in a way that doesn't benefit him in the slightest.
Yeah, he also steals that little green package without ever knowing what he is. Like,
yeah.
in this movie specifically, Malfoy appears to be a bit of a klepto.
Yeah, he went for a klepto phase apparently in his second year. That bit was very weird because that box is of no consequence. It's not important to the plot at all. It's just to show that if he sees something lying around, he'll probably take it for himself. He's a bit selfish. That's it.
I mean, it's good characterisation. He's a selfish git.
Yeah, basically. Do you know what was weird in this one?
What?
The Dursleys, especially Vernon.
Elaborate?
Well, in the beginning, he wants to lock him up and stop him from going to school.
Yeah.
I suppose to punish him, but they have to put up with him and clothe him and feed him for a whole year, so if they really hate him that much, why do they want to keep him
I
prisoner?
think they're probably still in denial that they have a wizard. So, I think they're probably still thinking at this point that if they can
Well, in fairness, Dudley has a tale to prove it. No pun intended.
That if they can just keep him away from there, they can make him not a wizard.
Yeah, although it's a bit yikes and weird when they're like soldering this giant cage onto the window for all the neighbours to see, by the way, because the house backs out onto another house, and their neighbours can probably see everything that's going on and wondering why on earth they're going Joseph Fritzl on young Harry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird scene. Well, then again, it's from the book, so, we're not going to blame the movie for that.
Yeah.
I really like Jason Isaacs.
Which one is Jason Isaacs again?
I nearly said Jason Eisen. Oh, what am I on about? Jason Isaacs is the guy who plays Lucius Malfoy.
Oh, yeah.
Who my notes keep autocorrecting to Luscious Malfoy. I mean, come on, he is luscious with that lovely head of hair. Just silkily glistening in the winds. Silver, flash of silver.
Luscious Malfoy.
That sounds like some sort of hair gel product, like Luscious Malfoy, because you deserve it. With his hair flicks, it's fantastic. But he's had quite a good acting career.
Yeah.
Jason Isaacs. Do you know what else he's been in?
Go on.
He's not been in that many live-action movies, but he has done a lot of voice work. He voiced Captain Hook in the 2003 Peter Pan remake. He played General Zhao in Avatar: The Last Airbender, interestingly enough.
Oh, wow.
He voiced the Grand Inquisitor in Rebels, Star Wars Rebels.
Cool.
And he also played Georgy Zhukov in The Death of Stalin, which is quite interesting.
Nice.
because he plays a very rough character in that.
I could be mistaken, I haven't seen the movie, but I have heard he's also the only one that had any fun in Twilight.
I can believe that. Was he in Twilight? I'll take your word for it.
I don't know, I haven't seen it, but I remember seeing a video once about, I think it was of the last one, and he was laughing, and it said Jason Isaacs, the only one having any fun with this movie. And
but it's been in a lot of things.
Unless it was someone else, but I think it was Jason Isaacs.
He played the general in the Hitman games.
Cool.
So, yeah, he's made quite a name for himself. Not necessarily in live action film, which is a shame, because one of my favourites, my two favourite dialogue interactions in this film, one of them is near the beginning, where they're in a bookshop and he's basically talking shit about everybody, and he crosses swords with the Dad Weasley, who I can't remember the name of, Arthur.
Yeah.
Yeah, he crosses swords with Arthur, and then Arthur says, well, some of us have different ideas as what disgraces the name of wizard. I just love that, because he stands up for himself, he stands up for his family, but he does it in a way that neither causes a scene or goes down to his level. He does it with dignity. And that makes me like Arthur instantly, even though he's not that important a character in this one, at least.
What's the point of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it? Well, it looks like they pay you very well for it.
Hey! Oh, that would have been a better comeback. I like that, Ollie. Also, the other exchange I really loved was at the end, where Dumbledore and Harry are in Dumbledore's office, and Lucius comes in and demands to know what's happened, and then they basically let on, subtly, but with no doubt, that they know that he was behind the whole thing, and that...
Yeah. That scene in the office, like, Dumbledore knows, and Lucius Malfoy knows that Dumbledore knows, but they can't prove it, so...
I just adore the Richard Harris Dumbledore. I wish we got to see him play that role for the whole of the series.
There's also the change of directors to consider, but I think that's also part of why the films after that feel a lot less whimsical.
Yeah, I do like the Yates movies, but I do miss whimsical Columbus Harry Potter.
Yeah, it feels more more magical, for lack of a better term.
Although Columbus does prove in this one that he can adapt to the increasingly darker tone of the books, because it is a darker looking movie, it's a darker feeling movie, it's a lot more adult in its content, I'd say. Finally beginning to explore the prejudice in the wizard world, for example.
I can't help but wonder what Chris Columbus's Goblet of Fire would have been like.
Is that euphemism?
No, Seb.
No, I do wonder as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not one for keeping a director through the whole of a long series like that, because people have careers and they've got lives. You can't expect them to marry themselves to a multi-movie franchise for a decade of their lives when they've got so many other things they probably want to achieve and do.
Yeah.
But Chris Columbus stayed around just long enough, I think, it's fair to say.
I think he struck the tone of Harry Potter better than... What's his name? Sorry.
Yates. David Yates.
David Yates.
I agree. I think he was...
Sorry, I did know that.
Like...
It's just I'm sweating all over the place and my brain
is
not working.
Ollie, I will forgive you. I will pardon you for your crimes. The film achieved its goals quite well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was a solid sequel. It kept the interest of the franchise alive. It was a good movie in its own right, standing on its own. It carried the franchise very well through to its next phase, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
You couldn't ask for better franchise management.
The CGI hasn't been perfected yet, but there were bits I liked. Like when Dobby's jumping on Harry's bed, the dust particles come up around him. I thought that was a really nice touch. These
movies do subtlety really well, and you noticed something I hadn't even noticed during the scene where Dobby first appears when he comes out of the closet that Harry had been keeping him in.
And then he shoves him into the closet to hide him from Uncle Vernon.
Oh wait. Sorry, we outed poor Dobby. But anyway, he comes out of the closet and he's got a sock on his ear. And then he just casually, takes it off.
Yeah.
And then you notice, not only is it foreshadowing the sock scene at the end of the movie, it also very well might be the same sock, it's at least the same colour.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like freedom is out of reach, but if he perseveres, he'll get it soon.
Yeah.
I love Dobby in this movie.
I didn't.
Why not?
I thought he was annoying, and I liked the voice that my teacher did for Dobby when they were reading the book to me in school.
Give us an impression of the impression.
It just sounded a bit squeaky like this. Harry Potter is safe there, sir.
Are you sure that's not just how your teacher talked normally?
Well, Pete would remember it because he used to quote it all the time.
Yes, you shall do your homework.
That's Yoda.
Pointy ears, they've got the pointiness.
Yeah.
Dobby is like the mascot of this franchise. It's like the baby Yoda before that was even a thing.
I remember being excited that Dobby was going to be in it, but then when I saw the film, I was like, why do I like this thing? It's like...
It's a monstrosity. The budget certainly didn't go into Dobby because the CGI, except for towards the end, didn't look very good for Dobby.
Although, having said that, I was marking the hell out as much as anyone when he appeared to help him in later installments.
Well, he looks a lot better in the later installments because the technology has improved, but this was around the same time that the motion capture technology was being developed for Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Of course, you don't have the benefit of having somebody who's such a good physical performer as Andy Serkis in the role.
Maybe they didn't think to use motion capture, or maybe they didn't think it was the right way to go. But
I feel like Dobby would have looked 10 times better if they made this movie just 2 or 3 years later to really capitalise on that technology that was developed for the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I mean, if they waited 2 or 3 years to adapt Harry Potter, then Lord of the Rings would already be out, and there wouldn't be arguments in school playgrounds.
Well, we all know that Lord of the Rings is better, let's face it. Let's be real. Yeah, let's be real. But the reasons why I like Dobby is more for character reasons. I mean, the bit where we're not supposed to like him is where he's levitating the birthday cake and threatens to get Harry Potter in a load of trouble. Chekhov's cake again. Chekhov's cake returns. There is never a cake in a movie that doesn't end up splattered all over somebody's face. I like how he's got a grin on his face when he's doing it. He doesn't get to have this much fun at home.
There is a degree of glee to what he's doing.
I mean, we're supposed to hate him for taking so much pleasure in sabotaging Harry Potter's home life as poor as it already is. Because ironically, they're in similar situations where they're treated like garbage by the people they live with. Yeah. But with the grin on his face, you get the sense that he doesn't get to go out much. He doesn't get to be in that situation much, and he's just making the most of it.
Yeah.
And I don't begrudge him that.
No.
Also, I love the power level of the house elves in Lord of the Rings, because they're practically Dragon Ball Z characters. That they can do ki blasts.
You said house elves in Lord of the Rings.
It's too hot today. In Harry Potter, because they're practically Dragon Ball Z characters, they can fire ki balls, they can instantly teleport, even into Hogwarts, which even people can't do. They're just so powerful, and they take so much punishment. In fact, the bit where he uses the bludger to try and... I almost said kill Harry, because he probably would have killed Harry if he was successful.
He
uses the bludger to incapacitate Harry to the point where he can't stay in the school, even though they have a very good on-site healthcare system, which is established, so he probably wouldn't have left Hogwarts anyway, even if he was more severely injured.
Dobby would have to almost kill him to get him sent home.
Well, Dobby is a house elf who's very hardy and can take a lot of punishment, probably doesn't understand the concept of human fragility, I think he said.
Yeah, I did. I think because Dobby can take one hell of a beating, he assumes that everyone can.
Yeah, this small boy can survive falling off a broom at 100 miles an hour from a high height.
I mean, he's twice my size.
So he must be twice as hardy.
Yeah.
Logic would conclude. I also love the scene where Dobby is freed, Because the first thing he does as soon as he's free is key blast his old master to save Harry Potter.
Yep.
By the way, Lucius was going to kill Harry.
Yeah. I mean,
He said Avada. He was going to do the killing curse in a school during broad daylight.
I mean, that's not in the book, but
Outside of
we
Dumbledore's
don't
office.
know that he wasn't going to kill him in the book, and this is a different work anyway.
The ball's on the man, Ollie.
Yeah. He was going to commit murder of a school child in that school in front of the headmaster's office in broad daylight.
The audacity.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
But you know what their legal system is like, and there's probably a lot of nepotism there. He'd probably have got away with it.
He probably would have done, wouldn't he? I think the reason why they call him out in the office and say, you know, in more subtle words, we know what you've been doing, we're going to keep an eye on you and we will stop you if you do it again.
Yeah.
I think the reason why they don't take it further is because they know they don't have enough evidence or influence to convict him.
Yeah, that they would have to have several eyewitness accounts and, I don't know, a photo of him on the scene doing the thing to even have a chance.
Could have got Colin Creevy. They could have got Colin Creevy for that.
Yeah.
That's another character who I like. Didn't he die in the books?
I'm not sure.
I think he died in the Battle of Hogwarts randomly because they killed a lot of characters off-page, I suppose is the terminology.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really like, because I didn't like just glossing past the fact that, several main characters died off-book or off-page.
Yeah. And it's like, I suppose they weren't going to do anything else with those characters, so...
Yeah, I mean, in the last few pages of the book, they're not going to, but we're not here to discuss the Deathly Hallows book. But question 3, Ollie.
Yeah.
Did the movie exceed your expectations?
It did. It was better than I remember it being.
Yeah, and I think that the extended edition is better.
On the whole, I think the pacing is not quite as good, and
No.
there are a few scenes that don't need to be there.
But it adds a lot more flavour and world building, which are a lot of the factors of Harry Potter that attracts people to the franchise.
I mean, I've always been a bigger fan of the world of Harry Potter than I am of anyone in it or any of the stories that happen.
We said this last time, not to say there's not good characters, it's just they're not particularly amazing compared to a lot of other book franchises.
So, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was exactly what I wanted in a spin-off. Shame about the sequel, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've already had this conversation, by the way.
We probably have.
Yeah.
This is something I say a fair bit if the subject of Harry Potter comes up, so I've probably said it before.
Yes, it exceeded my expectations. It was better than I remember it being. I can see why it was nearly as successful as the original.
I'd put it pretty consistent with the original in terms of quality.
And that's the thing about these two. They feel like two parts of the same blade, I suppose you could say.
I'd say they feel like seasons 1 and 2 of a TV show, or they very well could have been.
Well, seasons 1 and 2 of a consistent TV show where the network didn't intervene, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because some TV shows have had a drastic drop-off in quality over the years.
In some cases, not even over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say Heroes, because I do actually enjoy the later series, but let's face it, season 1 was the only outstanding series of that show.
Yeah.
Question 4. Is there an element in the film that particularly appeals?
Well, when I was a kid, I was really into Harry Potter, so it would have been that.
Yeah, for me it was all the small things. It was the performances, the subtle details, the set dressing. I like the tropes, because we've got the animal or creature being fooled by a rock toss.
I really like the aesthetic of this film. That
Me too.
does appeal to me. Everything's bright and colourful, except when it isn't, but because it normally is, then that means when it isn't, it means more. The contrast. You know what I'm trying to say.
The one scene that I remember looking like something from one of the later movies, actually, was the sort of downward spiral past the moving staircases in the dark. That felt like something that could have been shot for a later Harry Potter movie. With its sort of greenish-black undertone.
Yeah.
The Forbidden Forest looks good again in this one. Not quite as good as the last one. It doesn't look quite as dark and scary. And maybe for people who really don't like spiders, it's really scary, but I don't give a shit about spiders.
I really don't like spiders, and Aragog was fine for me.
I think when they get to an Aragog or a Shelob size, they stop being realistic enough to be afraid of, if that makes sense.
Well, I couldn't tell you that concretely, but Aragog and Shelob don't cause problems for me, and I really don't like spiders. I might be alone in that. There are probably all manner of people who are really scared of spiders who also don't deal well with them.
I don't mind spiders. I like them because they're creative. They make those big old webs and they look amazing.
Yeah.
I think I'd like them a lot less if I saw them up close. Because I don't like their multiple eye things. Like, why do they need that many eyes?
I don't know.
Nobody needs that many eyes. It's ridiculous. They should bloody sort it out, shouldn't they?
Well, I remember seeing a documentary once in biology about... They went diving in a cave that had been sealed off for several million years, and there were spiders in it with no eyes because they had evolved them out.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, and like you've got slime that grows on the walls, and that's what they subsist on. I love those kinds of things. I think they found blind fish as well.
Yeah,
that have been in similar situations.
And nothing had any colour on it. Everything was white.
Yeah, because they don't need pigment where they are.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of Harry Potter, though, because that is the subject of this video.
Yeah.
Things that appealed.
Can you tell we're ramblers?
Yeah. I liked the flue powder scene.
Yeah,
although I think it's very lucky that Nocturne Alley was directly diagonal to the burrow, because otherwise you could have ended up in a prison or a furnace or something.
Wait, why am I in a crematorium?
Well, he went diagonally. Did you hear something, Larry? No, blaze it up. Do you know what set looks amazing?
What?
The burrow.
Oh, yeah, I remember us both remarking.
It's such a good-looking set. They don't use CGI. It looks fantastic. I don't think it looks as good in the later movies, actually.
The use of colour is something I really like. It was very bold.
I wish that the later Harry Potter movies weren't so washed out.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was just the settings on my TV.
Yeah, but they look very dark, and I understand what they're going for, but I don't like how bleak they look. I wish there was more colour in the later ones.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're still children's books.
That really does help set the tone, though, the use of colour in a scene.
Yeah, and I suppose it's successful and impactful because we miss how it used to look.
Yeah.
You know, we miss how this world was before Voldemort came back and did all this shit. So maybe it just means we're invested in the plot. So that might be a good thing, actually.
Yeah, it might be.
Oh, do you know who else a element in this film who appealed to me was?
What?
Kenneth Branagh. Bloody hell, he's good.
Yeah.
He's got such a good shit-eating grin. I love it. It's very much like Mike Myers.
Yeah, you likened him to
like Cat in the Hat Mike Myers. It's fantastic.
Well, particularly when he's doing the little chuckle after the smile, like
Yes.
That struck me as quite Austin Powers.
Yes, it is. I love it. He's such a brilliant character because he's such a bullshitter.
Yeah, and it's like he starts the dueling club. He must have known he wasn't up to it. So why did he do it? Nobody made him do that.
It's like when he evolved himself in the whole Chamber of Secrets plot and said, "Oh, I know where it is. I can sort them out."
Yeah, and then they told him to put his money where his mouth was.
I love the deleted scene, by the way, where they're doing the test and all the test questions are just questions about him.
Yeah. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's favourite colour?
That is such a fantastic scene, and then when you see Hermione simping after him, which I think was a thing in the book.
Yeah. She's a fangirl.
It's so funny. How many 10-year-old girls would fancy Kenneth Branagh?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad-looking guy. You know, objectively speaking, he isn't. But is he really like someone who teenage girls like? I mean, they usually like the Justin Biebers and stuff, don't they? You know, because I'm down with the kids. I'm a real millennial.
I don't know how many 10-year-old girls would fancy Kenneth Branagh, and I don't particularly want to know.
But he doesn't seem like somebody who they'd find particularly interesting.
He doesn't seem like the heartthrob type.
No, he's more like the older, handsome, rugged man thing. It's like, I think the kinds of women who like Sean Bean would probably like Kenneth Branagh for similar reasons.
Yeah. So it was probably a pretty good touch having Molly Weasley be slightly enamoured with him.
Yeah, because that makes a lot more sense. You know, he's one that the boomer moms like.
Yeah.
To put it simply.
Do the wizards have a word for boomer? Like, how would a wizard say
know.
okay boomer? Because boomer is probably something else in that world.
They'd probably get a stupid name like Whiz Poppers or something dumb like that.
Was that an intentional BFG reference?
No, it's just I was trying to think of whimsical, weird language to use.
Whiz popper means fart, by the way.
Well, yeah, they're all farts. Yeah, I like how he volunteers himself to fix Harry's arm, even though Pomfrey probably isn't that far away.
Well, she even said he should have been brought straight to me. I can mend bones in a heartbeat.
Exactly. Yet he had to inject himself into the situation.
He can't help himself.
He knows he's not good at it. Why does he even try?
He's a compulsive liar.
Yeah, it's a miracle he stayed in his job for the whole year, actually. And I promised I wouldn't say anything else nice about him, but Snape is my hero in this movie.
Oh, Seb.
I'm sorry, but he only does two things in the whole movie. One is to point out that perhaps Harry was in the wrong place in the wrong time.
Which he was.
Yeah, when they first find him next to the corpses looking really suspicious.
And the other is to call Gilderoy Lockhart out on his bullshit.
Yes, he was like, okay, since you've been telling us how good you are at this, perhaps you should go into the dungeon and save her. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I assume you'll be taking care of it. You said you knew where it was and could deal with the monster yourself.
Yes. Chamber of Secrets Snape is best Snape.
Yeah. Too bad he didn't stick around.
Yeah, it is a shame, isn't it? Because he becomes progressively more loathsome with every movie after this. Snape, I remember when I liked him.
Perhaps it's because he had bigger things to worry about than tormenting Harry this year.
Yeah. He was trying to start up his own small business.
And also keep his students alive.
Yeah, that is quite a pressing concern, I'd imagine. Although, you've got to admire the taste of Snape, because if you look in the Slytherin room, they've got fantastic couches.
Oh yeah, those sofas are...
Yeah. I just want to splay myself out on one of those sofas, like, grab each arm and go like, that feels good. Man spread a bit. That'd be fantastic right now.
I think my dad used to have a couch like one of those.
I want to break into the Slytherin locker room and just lie about.
Well, if you're gonna shove them near the dungeons where dangerous things are, you got to give them something, I suppose.
I still think that was a contingency. Yeah, I just love the little moments, like all of Malfoy's little moments when he grasps the mandrake. That's not a euphemism. And he just sticks his finger in and it bites him. Like, what does he expect? And he's just like, I order.
What's gonna happen?
I just love that little look he gives it, like, I order.
Yeah.
Also, they have Muggle sellotape to fix Ron's wand, which shows how much everyone else thinks of him.
Well, in the book it's called Spellotape, and it's implied to be magical, but...
It's basically just something they picked up from Wix in this universe, isn't it?
I think so.
The slug scene looked quite good, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, parts of it did, for me.
Well, I don't like the look of slugs, so the fact that it made me feel repulsed, I think, is a good sign.
They were better in motion so that the picture isn't dwelling on them.
Hagrid is the pog of this movie. I love Robbie Coltrane, the player of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, bloody hell, get W, Ollie, get in touch with your Twitch terminology.
Hagrid is technically the damsel in distress in this movie.
He is, because he's locked away in the big tower, and they have to try and free him.
Albeit indirectly.
Yeah, albeit indirectly. You don't see any of Azkaban, and that's good because that means that by the time of the third one, its reputation precedes itself.
Yeah.
I also like that the first time you see Hagrid in this movie, he's basically rescuing Harry from the dark situation. He instantly injects warmth into every scene he's in, which is why I quite liked that deleted scene where everybody is talking about Harry and how he's probably the heir of Slytherin and out to get them all.
Yeah. And then Hagrid is the first one to talk to him like, are you alright? He clearly knows that something's bothering Harry, because Harry never dismisses him like he does in that scene.
Exactly. And I like the scene at the end where he's freed.
Yeah, that's a very satisfying emotional payoff. Well, Dumbledore couldn't take sides yet because he's the headmaster, but Hagrid was, well, apart from Ron and Hermione, who know he's not the heir of Slytherin, Hagrid was really the only one who seemed to think he was innocent.
Harry is the Snape of this one, because in the last movie, Snape was the one who was in suspicious circumstances that happened to be coincidences, and was the one who everybody thought was doing the bad thing. Whereas in this one, the roles reversed, and it's Harry who is constantly in the suspicious circumstances.
And also it was Hagrid that got framed last time it happened. So do you think both of them uniquely saw the pattern and thought, nope, there's more to this?
Yeah.
And Snape's like, I don't like this kid, but he ain't guilty.
Yeah, and I like that he actually did that.
Yeah.
I do like that, because he's been there. Was Snape ever aware that everybody suspected... Well, I say everybody, the three kids suspected him.
I think he probably heard about it.
Yeah, like...
Because everyone heard about everything.
I can just imagine Dumbledore like, oh my god, Severus, you're not going to believe this. This is just hilarious. You're going to laugh at this.
They thought it was you.
They thought I was evil. Why did I give that impression? Maybe I didn't scold them enough.
That's a terrible Alan Rickman impression, by the way.
I know, I should have got Mike for that. I've got a friend who does a really good Alan Rickman impression.
Yeah. I think we've got two friends who do really good Alan Rickman impressions.
Yeah, they do the good guttural Shakespearean actors, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that we've talked about the elements that particularly appeal. How does the film hold up today, Ollie?
Pretty well, all things considered. The CGI is the main offender.
Yeah, you can tell it's a lower budget movie than the previous one.
Yeah. And, the technology wasn't where it needed to be just yet.
No.
I mean, it was only a year or two out, but...
Yeah, but I think if they released it a few years later, it might have suffered from Attack on Titan syndrome, where all the hype is gone and people have lost interest and moved on to something else since.
Yeah. Didn't it take quite a while for the Goblet of Fire to come out?
I don't think so. I think they came out quite consistently throughout the whole tenure of Harry Potter.
I remember it being a really long time.
Maybe it just felt like a long time. I don't know.
Maybe it did.
Yeah. If you saw the first one, there's no excuse for not seeing the second.
Well, Harry Potter was massive. I will say I didn't need to struggle for tickets to this one back in the day.
Yeah, it didn't do quite as well as the first, but you can't expect that of a sequel.
No.
Anybody trying to claim that a sequel isn't as good as the original because it didn't do as well, ignore the fact that most of the people who go to see sequels saw the first one.
Yeah, and not everyone saw the first one.
Yeah, so unless something was a big underground hit, or there was a huge gap between the original and the sequel, you're not going to get a jump in people going to see it who didn't see the original, typically speaking.
I mean, there's always diminishing returns with franchises. Unless you're talking about something where the previous events aren't that important, like the MCU. I didn't have to struggle for tickets, like I did with the first one. Diminishing returns is inevitable. It happens all the time. With the exception of the MCU, where the previous events don't matter as much.
Yeah, and we know because...
Or things like that.
Because each series of movies is treated like its own franchise. And then you've got situations like Godzilla, where they release a new Western one at least every 10 or 15 years, so you can't really consider them sequels so much as reboots. So they probably don't suffer from that same phenomenon.
Yeah.
Whereas if you market something as Harry Potter 2, even though it's not called that, you're mostly going to get people who watched the first one, aren't you?
I mean, there will be some people who are coming in at that one.
And anyone else who's dragged along for the ride, but That's not going to be that many people in comparison.
Although Harry Potter was massive, so...
Oh, yeah. Well, Daniel Radcliffe had to lose like £60, so... that was a terrible joke. Sorry.
Yeah.
In conclusion, Ollie?
In conclusion, it's not that it's not skippable, but I wouldn't skip it. It's better than I remember it being. I've said that so many times. I enjoyed it a fair bit, and yeah, I appreciate it more now than I did before I rewatched it for the sake of this video.
I think there's a lot of subtleties to enjoy about this movie, mostly in the performances and the production value. And overall, it adds up.
The score has got to be talked about, though, because you've pointed out several times, a lot of this score seemed to have been reused.
Well, I know that the Quidditch chase was reused from Attack of the Clones during the speeder chase on Coruscant, and the theme that's mostly played for Malfoy sounds a lot like the Separatist theme that plays when there's a mystery going on in Attack of the Clones. And considering that the soundtracks of Attack of the Clones and Chamber of Secrets are done back to back, you can understand why there was some duplication of work.
Yeah.
It works in both cases, so I'm not complaining.
I mean...
I just think it's interesting to note.
That's probably just the headspace that John Williams was in at the time.
It ages it to that early 2000s, and that's why I think it's interesting and of note. I think that the later movies not having the John Williams soundtrack does show.
Any series that has John Williams and then doesn't have John Williams is going to suffer for the lack of John Williams.
I mean, Home Alone, although you could say the reasons why the ones post number 2 sucked weren't because of the soundtrack.
There were many reasons for that.
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell is a burglar now, apparently, which I think's genius. The creepy wizards scene in Nocturne Alley felt very Home Alone too, where he's in Central Park and there's all the creepy-looking people. Although, ironically, they're probably less harmful than they look.
I mean, all they said was, "Not lost, are you? Come with us, we'll help you find your way back." They could have been kidnapping him, or they could have been earnestly trying to help him. We will never know.
Yeah, giving directions, or recruiting him for an organ harvesting gang. Who's to say, really? Oh dear. In summary, I quite liked this one. I'm not sure whether I liked it as much as the last one. They felt very cohesive to me, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I do mourn the loss of not only Richard Harris, but this era of Harry Potter.
Yeah, the much more whimsical version.
Yeah, I think I felt more attached to that, although obviously as you become older and a teenager, you grow up with Harry and you become intrigued in the whole mystery and plot thing.
At least that's the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will get to Prisoner of Azkaban next month.
Yeah, alright then. Hope you enjoyed this video. Heat-addled brains rambling about a film we watched.
It's hell.
I'm sorry, that's the last I'm going to mention the heat.
Yeah, I don't think you mentioned the heat much, Ollie.
It's fucking hot!
That wasn't an invitation to mention it more, but thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a nice, cool day. Bye.
Bye.